So this is going to be less of a tutorial than it is really just sort of a demonstration of a feature that you may not even realize is there benefiting you if you use direct light sources. This is a feature that came into play in 3.6, and it's one that sort of operates in the background and improves the sampling of direct light sources. Blender used to have a function called multiple importance sampling for direct lights, and that was replaced with a function called the light tree. And the light tree is a more advanced adaptive sampling system for direct lights. And the great thing is there's really not much that you need to do about it. You just kind of turn on, and for new files, it's turned on automatically. There's a heuristic algorithm that figures out of all the direct lights in your scene, which ones are the most important to focus samples on in terms of their brightness and influence within the scene. I have a very complex setup for this scene right here, this architectural scene that in fact has a lot of direct light sources in it. But some of them are kind of hidden in a hallway and in back parts of the scene where they're not really going to be having a lot of influence for any given camera that I happen to be rendering. And that's what this algorithm does. It says, of all the lights relative to what's being rendered, do I need to be focusing many samples on parts that are out of the scene or ones that are more directly in the scene? So we're going to take a look at some examples of how this improves scenes. So the Blender developers have been working on implementing newer and smarter sampling algorithms in order to reduce noise quicker and to give more intelligent sampling of the light sources in the scene. So we basically have two types of lights in a scene. We have indirect lighting and we have direct lighting. Path guiding is a way of more intelligently sampling indirect light sources in a scene. The light tree is a way of implementing a more intelligent and smart way of sampling direct light sources in a scene. In this architectural study that I've done, we have a bunch of light fixtures throughout the scene, quite a few of them actually, that have a direct light source coming out of the bottom and out of the top. There are a lot of direct light sources in this scene, and when you render it, the renderer has to spend time calculating all of these light sources. And that's what the light tree aims to improve, is sampling the lights that really matter for the particular camera view you have. So if I now turn on the view with the light tree, we get this. So look at that. You can see how it was more able to intelligently sample these lights that are in the scene, given the same amount of render time as we had the version without it. So let's take a look at another example. Here's an example in the same scene where the light tree is turned off. This is the original sampling method. You can see there's a lot of noise. I only rendered this for about 10 minutes, and you can see I have a lot of direct light sources, and they're clearly quite grainy, and especially up top here. So let me turn on the light tree rendered version, and you can see what happens. We get better sampling at the top, and especially on these square columns, we have better representation of the light calculations for those surfaces. So let me turn it off, and then back on. You can see over here we have better representations of the light being cast from these areas, and it improves sampling overall. Here's another example, same scene, again only rendered for maybe 8 minutes, no noise reduction. This is without the light tree. So this is how it would have been sampling before they put that into place, and now with the light tree, same amount of time, we get this. So it is able to sample more effectively and reduce the noise for these direct light sources, and that's the important thing. So let's look at another example. Here we are again, another part of the scene without the light tree on. And in this particular case, we can see it's not terrible, but there's still quite a bit of noise. If I turn on the version with the light tree sampling, you get this. Again, the same amount of time. We have less noise and better representation of these direct light sources. Again, off and then on. Here's another example with the light tree turned off. There are a lot of lights on the interior, but they're not sampled super well through the glass. This column here that the camera is directly looking at, it's sampled pretty well with the direct light source, but as soon as we turn the light tree on, we get this. So that definitely is better how it's capturing that. Again, both of these were rendered to the same amount of time, just a matter of minutes. Here's a good example. And remember, I specifically only rendered these for a short amount of time. None of these are finished renderings, and there's no noise reduction. As soon as I turn the light tree on, we get this. Do you see the subtlety there? But when you look at it, look at the area up in the right-hand corner. If I turn the light sampling off, there's a lot more noise up there. If I turn it back on, then we get much better representation from the light contribution of the direct light sources in those regions. Here's another example. The light tree is turned off, so we're using the original sampling. When I turn the light tree on, then we get this. Your eye should really be drawn to this area in the lower left-hand corner. Let me turn off the light tree version. Notice that this area is much grainier. When I turn the light tree version back on, we have much better sampling in that area from the direct light sources. Here's another version of this hallway with the light tree turned off. When I turn the light tree on, we get this. Notice this, the right-hand area is receiving a lot of light from these very small inset direct light sources. Let me turn off the light tree version again, and then back on. You can see how much better resolved that wall is because of the light tree sampling. And one final example. Here again, we're presented with the rendering that does not contain the light tree. Let me turn on the version that has the light tree now. So you can see these lights are much better represented. There's less noise and a better expression of the lighting on the ceiling. And on these very thin glancing angle walls, you see a better representation of the light also. So I hope you found this to be useful in kind of understanding what the light tree does. It's on by default in 3.6 onward, so you get it for free. There's really not much to configure, but it's nice knowing that it's there working for you.